Please welcome the CMO of Xanterra, Betsy O'Rourke, and the founder of African Bush Camps, Betsy Ndlovu, for a conversation moderated by Skift travel columnist Colin Nagy.
Hi everyone, I'm Colin Nagy, a columnist here at Skift. And to start off, would love for you guys to kind of briefly give us an overview of what you're working on. We'll start with Betsy.
Hi there. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm responsible for driving profitable revenue across a whole portfolio of a very diverse set of brands. So, as I like to say, rails, trails, and sales. We have a historic railroad, and we operate national parks and some adventure tour companies. So what we're focused on right now is really not only encouraging people who feel comfortable traveling now domestically, but we're also looking and giving people hope and optimism to book with confidence for next year.
Cool. And Bex?
So we are just in the process of uncurling and opening up our camps. We opened most of our camps 1st of September, obviously to the local market. And with South Africa coming up with their border opening procedures for the 1st of October, we're hoping that will put us right on time to be ready to accept the international market. So we have been in lockdown, as you know, and with our camps pretty much non-operational over the last 7 months. So it's quite exciting to start moving positively in the right direction.
Sure, and to follow on to that, Bex, obviously it's been very tough times with lockdown and restricted movement. But as you talk to your customer base and also just people in the market, do you have a feeling that there is going to be more desire for experiential travel into the bush, travel that might be a little bit more adventurous than in the past?
Yeah, certainly. I think nature-based tourism, as we call it, which is really what we specialize in, operating safari camps in our remote areas of Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. We just feel that is the sort of tourism that is set to recover a lot quicker than, of course, the extreme, which is, for example, the shipping industry. And we certainly feel that we have the open spaces, we have the smaller places. We are in the game of high value and low volume. Our biggest of our remote camps only having 6 tents, which is 12 beds, but having all the space in the world. So we certainly are seeing a lot more people take an interest into nature-based tourism, which I believe would be the sort of tourism that will bounce back up, and certainly more on the experiential side, and of course sustainable and really being sort of in the epicenters of the threatened wilderness areas of the world.
Betsy, you're a marketer by trade, and there's lots of different data sources. In many ways, we might be a little bit overwhelmed with data. But as you're thinking about Xanterra and you're thinking about the recovery, what are the data sources that you guys are looking in, both internally, externally? What are the things on the instrument panel that are most important to you right now?
Well, we're really looking at both internal and external, data. So internally, I mean, I'm very fortunate in that we have such a broad array of brands that you see different behaviors in different brands. So, I mean, we're looking at all the usual suspects, right, of call volumes and web traffic and what people are actually searching for and the kinds of dates that they're searching for. And then, of course, what they're actually booking across multiple brands. And then what we're also looking at is external factors. How many people are going through TSA? There's a wonderful site where you can look at that every day. What's the stock market? How's the travel industry performing on the stock market? What's unemployment? And of course, what's the news cycle? And that's had a lot of influence on how people feel. If you're in Florida, Texas, or Arizona this summer, you feel really differently than when you're in where I am in Colorado, because it's that sort of inside versus outside. So we're looking at all of that to try and track consumer sentiment so that we can be on message and understand where people's heads are in terms of how they're thinking about travel.
Cool. And Bex, I wanted to ask you, as you're rebuilding, reopening, are you seeing interest from different regions that might not have been your bread and butter in the past? Is there an upswing in interest from say, China? Is there more domestic interest? Is your customer base broadening as a result of the pandemic, or is the interest broadening?
Yeah, Colin, we're not seeing that just yet. I think it's still rather early to determine whether we've got different source markets developing. A source market that is developing for us is the South Americas. But then again, pre-COVID, we had already started cultivating that market and digging deep there. So we are seeing that take a real interest in coming back, at least coming to Africa, and certainly as a newer source market than the traditional ones, which is the US and the UK. So we were very happy to continue to develop that. But certainly, I think now that countries are starting to open and people are reestablishing their travel policies, I think people will start to make decisions and actually press the button. I mean, as you can imagine, we've had a lot of people who spend a lot of time online, and with people working from home, people have actually had the time to dream about the next destination or the next bucket list, as it were. And what we've seen is a serious upsurge in inquiries, actually, over the last 5 months in particular. And that's been quite interesting, just from a point of view of just trying to gauge where people's interests are lying and the things that they want to do and why.
And what have you been doing at African bush camps in terms of kind of keeping the dream alive for people? I've noticed everyone has been very active with social. You've been speaking on a lot of topics. How have your marketing tactics kind of changed to keep the interest levels up, even if people can't book tomorrow?
So we've certainly been very active with our social media channels, and in particular, Facebook and Instagram, where I'm now hosting. Initially, it was once a week for each of those shows, and now it's once a month, where I'm hosting safari talks on Facebook, and then conversations with Bex on Instagram, and both are really sort of been platforms of engaging both with the trader and, of course, with the end consumer. And those have been great because we've been talking about the practicalities of what we're doing right now and how it's really relevant to COVID-19, and also talking about what the future looks like for us and what we believe is the future of safaris is. So we've been very active there. But other than that, we've been talking to a lot of media channels that have really put out the story of what we believe the future of travel is, and some of the mistakes that we've done in the past, or the oversights which we need to address as an industry.
Cool. And Betsy, I'm very intrigued by your business and obviously the rise in the US of domestic travel. What used to be a 2 or 3 hour car trip, people are willing to go a lot farther. So the combination of something like a Death Valley and the off the beaten path things, the bucket list plus more domestic travel, what are you guys seeing in terms of interest based on that combination?
Yeah, that has really played out this summer. I mean, the way we think of it is it's kind of about controlling your environment, and people are willing to go much further than, I mean, it used to be, I think, 150 miles, 200 miles was sort of the circumference, but now people are driving literally 600, 700, 800 miles. And one of the things that's great about a national park is it's very accessible to a lot of different price points, right? And this summer we've had more availability because we haven't had international travelers and we haven't had groups. So the combination of those two segments not being here this summer has given more Americans access to actually rooms in the parks. And we have a plethora of different kinds. I mean, you have everything from camping to RVs to, this beautiful historic hotels. So yeah, we have definitely seen people hit the road. I think, everyone listening is probably, know somebody who's rented an RV for the first time. And again, we think of this as controlling your environment. I want to actually know exactly, what to expect from the brand, and then how I can keep control of my environment once I'm there.
Cool. And Bex, I love something you said earlier. Obviously, your experiences are naturally socially distant. They're in the wilderness. There's lots of space. In terms of the constraining factors of, people getting to Africa, there's obviously long flights, long haul. There's border things, there's visa things. If you were in charge of everything, is there any changes that you would make tomorrow, in terms of in terms of addressing any friction points for people getting into Africa?
So I think we certainly are seeing the constraints of one location or one hub for Southern Africa at the moment, with South Africa being closed. Botswana and Namibia are probably the early comers in Zambia. We've seen East Africa open up quite a lot, and there's many avenues to access East Africa. So we've seen tourism bounce back quite well. Not obviously as we expected to, but certainly there's a lot of interest. And I think that interest is going to drive tourism back to East Africa a lot sooner than Southern Africa. And the problem with us in Southern Africa is the reliance on Johannesburg as a hub for so many of the region. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people actually pass through Joburg, don't necessarily stay in South Africa. But South Africa is really critical to the opening up of the whole region. And I think, if anything, that risk should be mitigated by having a number of avenues coming into this part of the world. But as with everything, it's a numbers game.
Sure. And so you're saying that because of Joburg as a hub kind of being diminished right now, I mean, is this an opportunity for a Kigali to be a new hub for people kind of coming into Africa, or is it too soon to say?
So Kigali certainly could be, and we're seeing places like Namibia show that potential, and I guess Zambia also shows that potential, but certainly Nairobi continues to have the greatest potential in terms of accessibility. But it goes without saying that there's places like Maun in Botswana, there's been discussions around that, and particularly around Victoria Falls, which really at the end of the day is a key hub for tourism in Southern Africa. And so I believe there are opportunities. But as I mentioned earlier on, it is a numbers game. And with the main source markets that are in the red, such as the US, the UK, where a bulk of our source market is, if they aren't able to travel through South Africa, that has an impact as well.
Got it. And we had a question from the audience of your beautiful backdrop today. So where are you coming to us from?
So I'm very fortunate. I've just spent the last 3 days with my family. It was school holidays as of Friday last week. So I have 3 kids who I'm exploring nature's gift on our doorstep. So we started with 3 days on the West Coast, Cape, and we're now in a place called Tulbagh, which is just south of the Cedarbug Mountains. So farming background up in the mountains, and I feel really privileged, although I'm frustrated that I can't get to my camps in Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. We certainly have in South Africa to enjoy.
It's nice. The bird song is beautiful. It's putting me in a good mood already this early in the morning here. Betsy, I wanted to ask you, in terms of consumers are not just buying the nice place or the nice hotel; they're actually double clicking a lot deeper onto the kind of values and sustainability. So how are you guys positioning that? Obviously, you have incredible destinations, but how are you layering on your conservation or sustainability marketing into that sell? Is it buried on the website, or are you guys bringing it much more front and center in the narrative?
Well, our mission statement is legendary hospitality with a softer footprint. And what you're talking about is, we've been stewards of these incredible national parks for over 150 years as the Fred Harvey Company. And there's a great sense of responsibility and pride in maintaining and, making sure that all of these destinations stay pure. So every single thing in our operations has this sustainability filter. We have a director of sustainability in every operation, and it is every discipline goes through that director to make sure that we are taking every step possible. So there are endless examples. You can be picnicking in Yellowstone at a picnic table that was, spun from glass bottles, and, walk into the retail shop and buy a t-shirt that was from plastic bottles, and so on and so forth. But how do we engage our customers is really on site. There's a lot of signage. There's a lot of messaging. We ask them to participate with us, certainly in recycling. A big issue is a lot of people bring trash into the park. We get them to take it right back out again. So, there's a lot of activity from a messaging perspective throughout our websites, but certainly more importantly, when you actually arrive to our destinations.
Got it. And Bex, I wanted to kind of end on a little bit more of an optimistic note. I wanted to have you explain a little bit your thoughts on the role and the importance of hospitality as it relates to conservation, and also having, people that have grown up in these places kind of feel invested in conservation. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that aspect of it is going to become more and more important. One of the things that I continue to advocate for is that travel really offers us an opportunity to have a rate of return of our human investment into our lives and into the livelihoods of so many people across the globe. And one of the things that we're very focused on in our sort of next life is to foster relationships that really buy in to the fact that travel has a serious responsibility to be able to provide not just restorative leisure places, but also provide opportunity to educate and bring awareness to the real challenges and issues around the environment, around communities. Because we live in Africa and are close to these environmental areas. They're of global significance. But we are the custodians of these areas, and we actually need the world to participate in preserving and conserving these areas. So I think something that is very important is to make sure that the relationships that we engage with other people in travel all believe in this and have the same philosophy, because it's important to get the right kind of clientele to the right places that will have a far much deeper understanding and a deeper impact going forward in terms of what we need to do to act and behave differently and to choose travel differently, so that we can all have a high impact for these local communities and these conservation areas.
Cool. And Betsy, just to follow on, you guys have been around for 140 years, right? So to what extent is resilience a part of this, and to what extent is optimism part of this for your brand?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to, I hit this pivot word, to really be thinking about what people need and want in travel. I mean, one of my hopes is, everybody talks about pent-up demand for travel, but I actually hope that one of these, with closed borders and lack of access to some of the places that we really want to be able to visit, that people will put more value on those travel experiences, similar to what Bex is saying. It gives us a break from, the day-to-day, from most of us living in urban environments behind screens, to actually connect with nature, connect with a local community, have that experience. I think people gave that up. A lot of people gave that up this year and took it for granted. So I'm hoping that next year and in subsequent years, people will actually have more gratitude, if you will, and more participation.
Perfect way to end. Betsy, Bex, this has been really, really engaging. Thank you so much for your thoughtful answers, and appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.